Hello everyone, welcome to my Dead Space remake, hard difficulty, no damage walkthrough. This is chapter 3, course correction, and if you didn't kill the necromorph and the lurker when you were... I keep saying lurker, I don't know why guys, but I end up getting the names Leaper and Lurker confused because they're pretty similar sounding names, and so a lot of times I just end up calling the Leaper the Lurker and then calling the Lurker the Leaper. Oh, it's really annoying. But as I was saying, if you left the Necromorph and the Leaper alive in Chapter 1 when you were escaping your ship, they will be there. So you need to hug the left-hand side because the Necromorph tends to hug the right-hand side of the door. And then you gotta keep moving. Be careful of the stuff on the ground. You need to pay attention to the debris on the ground because it will slow you down. And then when Hammond indicates that you can use your thrusters, you'll be able to go up, and then those enemies will not be able to catch you. That being said, though, that Necromorph can be pretty fast at times with actually catching up to you. But I have to say, he's only come close to hitting me once, and that was out of like 50 attempts. And believe me, guys, I restarted this chapter so many times, and it was really because of stupid issues. And also moments where I'm just trying to track enemies down, and I just can't hear them because the audio on this game is not very good. Ooh, this is a random spawn right here. So randomly, you can get 2 necromorphs or 2 lurkers, 1 necromorph and 1 lurker, or no enemies at all. And on this recording, I got 2 necromorphs on this part of the hallway. So this chapter, you'll really notice random spawns being a factor to consider when it comes to the challenge that's provided by Chapter 3. And too bad it doesn't do anything to salvage this chapter. I have to say, I don't really like this chapter. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as Chapter 2. Chapter 2 was perfect in Dead Space Remake, but here, I just feel like there are a couple of drawn-out scenarios and parts where the game can really show its ugly side. And I had a couple of weird moments happen when I was going through this chapter. Ooh, and also, that right there, you'll notice that when he dropped from the ceiling, he pushed the fan to the ground so I could grab the fan and use it against him, which is one of the coolest designs in this game. That being said, though, there is a major drawback to this. Whenever the enemies are in the middle of the drop-down animation, when they spawn from the ceiling vents, they're completely invulnerable. You have to wait until they go back into a neutral state before you're able to use the fans against them. And right here, use the pipe against the Necromorph when he's out of his invulnerability frames, and then turn around when you grab the fan, bisect the Necromorph, and then grab the fan behind him and kill him. For some reason on this recording, it didn't kill him. I'm guessing I used the second fan way too fast, and it probably didn't connect with his body correctly, or maybe there's some kind of split-second invulnerability frames he's in when he's bisected by the fans. I don't know. I had some really weird moments happen in Chapter 3 that were very confusing, and some pretty annoying ones that you've already seen before in my previous videos. And right here, I take 2 explosive canisters with me, so use the first explosive canister when this female necromorph spawns. I'm going to try to use the second one to kill this female necromorph, but it missed. That happens occasionally, because the auto-aim ends up causing the explosive canister to prioritize the wrong part of the environment, or it just doesn't lock on to the female necromorph correctly. So instead, I waited for the female necromorph to set up, and then blew up the explosive canister behind it. And then right here, grab this explosive canister, use it against that necromorph, and then get rid of this guy. These 2 necromorphs right here were a real pain in the ass. I was very confused as to what I was supposed to do, and then I just came up with that idea because I remembered there was an explosive canister right there. And thank God, because this guy that I just killed, he's the one that's really annoying. Like, I can deal with this necromorph right here easily because he's very close and I can just use the spikes against him. But the other one, he's pretty fast at times, and that strategy is the best way to handle those last 2 necromorphs right there. When also grab that fan and place it right here, you'll need it for a later female necromorph that will spawn in this area. Make sure you grab this fan as well. I'm going to use it against the next necromorph that spawns. And I had a really stupid moment happen with this necromorph that I'm about to kill. In one of my recordings, I bisected this guy with the fan, and then I went to go stomp him, but I took damage from nothing. I don't know what the hell happened. I didn't see him do any attack animation. I just took damage from nothing. And you'll see it as a blooper in the end of this video. But grab this pipe and place it right here because there are going to be a bunch of lurkers that spawn, and impalement devices are the best way to deal with lurkers because lurkers take forever to expose their tentacles and they just move all over the place. You're just waiting for them to expose their tentacles. It's just a very clunky, tedious process. I don't know why the developers have to design these lurkers this way. But at least Motive Studios gives you the ability to instantly kill lurkers with impalement devices, aside from the fan, because I've already demonstrated in Chapter 2 that the fans don't kill lurkers instantly, which makes no sense. But same thing, use the fan to bisect that guy and then stomp him. Use the pipes to your advantage, and somehow this pipe misses, but the cool thing about the pipes is even when you miss, you can reuse them. This is not the case with the Necromorph blades. If you miss with a Necromorph blade, it will be destroyed. But with the pipes, they will be preserved, so you can reuse them. Oh, and also, I don't know how this happened, but I used the fan against this female Necromorph, and I'm guessing it hit the head, because for some reason the fan didn't get destroyed. Normally when you hit a Necromorph with the fan gets destroyed, but it didn't happen this time. I'm guessing I must have gotten lucky with the angle of trajectory with the fan, and maybe that's why I didn't get destroyed. But ignoring that, I managed to get on the lift, I pick up that enemy's spikes, and I'm going to use it against this leaper right over here. And he's going to die very fast. And then coming up, there's going to be an infector, so I'm going to make sure I shoot the door very quickly so I can get through, and then I'm going to use a mine to my advantage. The black Necromorph will still spawn, but he has very low health because he's taking damage from the mine. So aim directly for the infector, and it will kill it instantly. And I think this is preserved on all chapters. I don't think the infectors get any kind of health increase like the other enemies do. In fact, I don't even think there were black infectors in the previous Dead Space games. I think the infectors were just that. But now we have the famous decontamination room, but it's still pretty tedious like the original Dead Space. However, the pulse rifle mines, definitely very helpful in killing the lurkers. And there are 2 lurkers that spawn, and then it's going to be 1 Necromorph and 1 Leaper. But see this, I have to wait until he stops moving around the environment and pulls out his tentacles. How fucking tedious is that? This is why I don't understand why people like these enemies. They're just a very dull enemy to fight, and they don't even feel like an enemy. They feel like a moving obstacle, pretty much, that just gets in your way. It's just more so a nuisance than an actual threat. But I use the ceiling fan to my advantage to bisect that Necromorph and then kill it. And then I'm going to use the spikes from the Necromorph to kill the Leaper. And something worth knowing about the ceiling vents in this room, the ceiling vents, when they're destroyed, they will drop 2 fans, so you can use 2 fans to your advantage. So you gotta pay attention to how the vent looks to know how many fans you're going to get. Like, that one has 2 fans, so I know I'm gonna get 2 fans from here. And I'm preparing for a potential random spawn to occur, because sometimes a Necromorph or a Leaper can spawn back in the decontamination room when you return to it. But in a lot of the recent recordings I had of this chapter, I wasn't getting any spawns, so how fortunate for me. But not for this room. This room is very annoying. Because of how dishonest the audio is on this game, it is so hard to track down the Leapers when you're trying to pinpoint their positions initially. But I'm able to kill that one. That one always spawns right there when you get close to it. And then when you attach this particular generator module, not the other one, this Leaper will spawn from the ceiling. So I'm going to prepare. This is at the point where I don't really know where he is, but I remember the ceiling spawn, but I thought it was from a later chapter. But it turns out I was right, and he does spawn from the ceiling. The explosive canisters will not kill Leapers instantly for some reason, just like in the original Dead Space. It's really stupid, but wait until they get out of their invulnerability frames when they're getting out of the vents, and then use the explosive canisters to your advantage. And now we have this centrifuge sequence. So this is nowhere near as good as the original Dead Space, because in the original Dead Space, you could skip this sequence by using stasis on the railings, dropping down, and just getting to the elevator immediately, and you didn't have to waste time with the enemies. But here, you have to deal with the enemies, and it's only 2 Necromorphs, so it's not that big of a deal. But also, if you leave those previous Leapers alive, I believe they are enemies you have to deal with in this particular sequence. But dismember that guy's leg so that he gets killed by the centrifuge. Stasis this guy, and I make a mistake right here. I think I used the fan on him when he was still in his invulnerability frames, but you'll notice I took off his leg in 1 shot from the plasma cutter, so the damage from the fan clearly connected, but I'm guessing the dismemberment didn't count. I'm just vulnerable to my hits because I technically used stasis on him when he was in the middle of his drop-down animation, but maybe the invulnerability frames aren't affected by the stasis whatsoever, so even when he's slowed down in the middle of his drop-down status, the invulnerability frames take the same amount of time to go away, which I guess that might be a good thing, but the invulnerability frames shouldn't be a thing in the first place. And now we have this drag tentacle moment, and you have to shoot this tentacle a lot with your plasma cutter, even when it's upgraded. I don't know why the damage isn't reduced. And, you know, I wish it was like Evil Within 2, where it was based on the number of hits you had to deal, not based on the damage of your weapons. Because what if you didn't have enough ammo? I mean, I know I have a lot of plasma cutter ammo, and it doesn't seem possible for you to run out of ammunition before the sequence. But, you know, like if you don't have the right upgrades, for instance, it's highly likely you're gonna scrape by the skin of your teeth when you're doing those drag tentacle moments. I don't think the developers really gave a lot of thought to these drag tentacle moments properly when they were designing it for the original Dead Space and for the remake. And now we have this part, so freeze that fan with stasis, and then turn off the fans, and then turn on the airlock. A leaper is going to spawn right behind you, so use stasis, grab the fan, dismember its arm, and then just shoot it. Shoot its body parts, and it will die. And you'll be able to recharge your stasis at the recharge station. And then coming up, we're going to be able to gain access to the flamethrower. So this was the first time I ever used the flamethrower in this remake. I used it in my blind playthrough, but I didn't expect the flamethrower to be so good. It's a really awesome tool, and the problem is there are a couple of random moments where the necromorphs don't get stunned by the flames that are emitted by the firewall. Because how the flamethrower works is its base fire just fires a typical flamethrower, and then when you use the alternative fire, it will spawn a flame wall on the ground. And this will stop the necromorphs in their tracks, and it will also stun lock them. Not always, though, because the enemies can be very bullshit like that. But the flamethrower is really good against leapers. Leapers are a very fast enemy, but the flamethrower just stops it when you use the firewall. And it takes roughly 1.5 uses of the firewall. And I say 1.5 and not 2, because I have been able to kill leapers with 1 use of the firewall. But I use 2 firewalls just to be on the safe side when dealing with leapers. And also, be careful of that swarm right there. The swarms are best dispatched using the flamethrower, which makes sense. First, pregnant. Pregnants on this game are better designed because you can actually see their legs a bit more, and also you don't get a lot of those stupid moments where even when you're not hitting the stomach, the pregnant just spawns the enemies anyway. Like, there are times where the game misrecognized the body part that you shot in the previous Dead Space games, and so it thought you hit the stomach, and so it just spawns the enemies. It could be pretty bullshit, but that was only because of how tiny its legs were, and the times where its hitbox on its stomach could be larger than it appeared, but they've fixed those issues, it feels like. I don't feel like I get a lot of moments where the pregnants just spawn those enemies out of the blue, even though I'm hitting it in the correct body parts. So that's good to see. But right there, get rid of that necromorph, and then grab this pipe. But before you use it, use that barrel to kill the swarm, and then use the pipe on that female necromorph. This female necromorph was a pain in the ass in my blind playthrough. It hit me with that projectile attack so many times, but that was because I didn't recognize the pipe right there. The pipe is a better choice to use than the explosive barrel, and that was where I made a save, because this room was annoying, but it was still fun at the same time. And I got a pretty good strategy for this room, and originally my strategy for the next phase of this encounter was to sit on the stairs behind me, but it was not really working for this walkthrough because I ended up getting spawned on by a female necromorph, and it drew my attention away from the other enemies. So I just recommend you stay by the door and just stand your ground. That's the best way to handle this room. But there goes the pregnant, and now I'm just going to set up for the next spawn that occurs. So there is an explosive canister right there, so I'm going to place it there. There is a ceiling vent that has 2 fans in it, which is always good to see. So I'm going to take these fans and place them right over here. And if you want, there are other vents in this room that have fans, but you won't be needing them so much. The flamethrower can be very handy for this room whenever the enemies get very close to you. Oh, this right here, I'm planting mines. So I'm going to plant a mine right there, and I'm going to plant a mine right here. This is to kill the female necromorph that might potentially spawn from the vent that I just destroyed. The spawn of this female necromorph is a bit random. I think you can control where it spawns depending on where you are. So if I stand very close to where it spawns, it'll spawn from there, and it should hit the mines. But on this recording, even after being hit by 2 mines, it is still alive. The HP of the female necromorphs is absolutely absurd. It doesn't make any sense. But I've triggered the spawn, so I'm going to prepare by grabbing the explosive canister. As soon as the first necromorph appears, I'm going to use it. Oh, that explosion was the female necromorph spawning in, and look, even after 2 mines, it's still alive. And I try to kill it, but I throw my spike way too soon, so I miss, and then I use the fan on it. I'm going to use the other fan on this Necromorph, take off its blades, and then use the blades against the other enemies that will spawn. There is another one that spawned from the floor grate. So I get rid of him, and then I'm going to use the spikes to get rid of the other ones, and then this is where I decide to use the flamethrower, because I know a leaper is going to spawn at this point, and he does. He leaps at me as well, but he actually misses. He jumped way too soon, and luckily for me, he's taking damage from the fire, so is the other Necromorph. This is one of the main things that I love about the flamethrower on this game. Not only is it really good at stunning the enemies, but when they die, you have complete accessibility to use their spikes to your advantage on the other enemies, and it's hard to miss the spikes because they're very close to you. They aren't dismembered or anything. They're on the actual dead body, and this is definitely advantageous when you're using the flamethrower on this game. And I don't think the flamethrower was ever this good in the original Dead Space. I wouldn't know because I never used any other weapon aside from the plasma cutter in the original Dead Space. But given the outdated designs and mechanical problems of the original Dead Space, I don't think the flamethrower was ever that good compared to the remake. But now that that's done, go ahead and pick up the supplies in the area, and we'll move on. But right here, this is going to be another random spawn. Sometimes a pregnant can spawn very close to you. Other times you'll get other necromorphs spawning in. So this is why I'm preparing. The pregnant spawned from this part of the hallway right here, but this time he wasn't there. And I don't see any other necromorphs spawning. And once you get to the tram station, you're safe. And all you have to do now is just get on the tram and get to the bridge. And then this is where I will make my save once I get to the bridge. So right here. Also, before you get through this door, there is an explosive canister on the tracks. I questioned why there isn't an explosive canister on the tracks right here. You're not going to see it yet because I'm busy trying to sort my inventory just so I can pick up the flamethrower fuel, which is definitely needed. And good thing I picked up the schematics for the flamethrower fuel in case I need it. But in my blind playthrough, I didn't really find myself buying ammunition aside from plasma cutter ammunition. But there's the save, and that's the end of the chapter. But here are a couple of bloopers. So this right here is poor kinesis detection. I'm trying to grab the spikes, but the game will not let me. It's not near a wall. Why is this happening? And while I'm in the middle of fiddling around with this clunky detection on the kinesis, this guy is able to attack me, and I end up taking damage. That happens so frequently in this remake, and it's not even funny. And then that right there was the damage, just the random damage I took out of nowhere. You saw him not doing any attack animation. Why did I take damage? Oh, and this right here, the fire extinguishers can damage you. I did not know this. So I heal myself because I was just checking to see if I took damage, and I did. So be careful of fire extinguishers. They will damage you out of the blue. And right here is very poor detection on the reticle / laser sighted system on the plasma cutter. Because even when the center dot is on the body part, it just misses. Just rewatch that. You can just see that my shots are missing. I don't know why they decided to favor the laser-sighted system for this game, but it's just as bad as Dead Space 1. I clearly recall in Dead Space 1 getting similar moments of very clunky detection on the reticle when I'm aiming at enemies with the plasma cutter because of the way the laser-sighted system works. There's a reason why I say the laser-sighted system in Resident Evil 4 is more honest than the laser-sighted system in the original Dead Space. And the switch to the reticle-based system was one of the better design choices that Dead Space 2 and 3 introduced to the series. But why they reverted back to the laser-sighted system for the remake, I will never understand. You can clearly see why I don't trust the laser-sighted system in Dead Space 1 and the remake. But with all that said, this is the end of this chapter. Stay tuned for the future chapters. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.